for all of you new people there, and you probably are new to trading and all that. And on my way to work today, I was listening to Warren Buffett talk about why he loved small business. The Russell, which is the small create your own business funds and all, or businesses and all that. And you know why he loves them, and he invests so highly into them and builds all these programs to allow these businesses to like succeed even through COVID. It's because they're business people that are real, right? So he pulls his business people from community colleges. He literally said that on CNBC. He doesn't pull them from Yale. He pulls those people from higher colleges for his big businesses, but for small build-up businesses, he pulls them from community colleges. And his turnover ratio is humongous, right? And it's because like he understands that they have like the real people. So for you being a new trader, like the whole purpose of elite trading, like one day we will be a brokerage. Like there's no doubt in my mind. But right now we're a trading club. But the people we want to target is that working class, that single mom who's going to college and working a full-time job and raising a family, and we want to give her financial freedom. Or that person who just had nothing in life, and they're working at the car dealership and they're putting in 18-hour days, and they're doing a secondhand job as an Uber driver off the side to make a couple more $100. Like, so those are the kind of people we want to target. And so when it comes to brokerages, like I get it that most new traders want to join the Robinhood because they give you a free stock, and that's all fine and dandy. However, when looking at a brokerage, you have to think before you place one stock. You have to do your research, right? Not just on the stock, but whichever company you want to trade through, right? And a couple of things that I look for, and when I pick my brokerage, they're trained. Like, if they're a big time corporation and they expect me to like use them to place my trades, then I need to learn from them. I don't need to rely on them. I need to learn from them, right? All they are a platform for me to make my trades. So what I'll do, first thing you research is what kind of education program they have. And is that education program to teach you, is it tailored to the way you learn? Or is it a complicated script taught by very dry individuals, and like their training program jumps really fast, really complicated, really soon, and you're left in the dust, and then you're just sitting there making trades confused, worse than you were when you first thought, I need to invest this money, right? So to give you an example, right? And Caleb, do I have 5 minutes to teach a real quick class just to give them a sample of what it should be?
Yes, but if you don't mind, let me interject real quick. And the reason why I want to, before he goes into that, is I want to make sure you guys understand that if he's okay with it. Mickey, can you tell him what you do for a living, and you're a year away from retirement, and I want them to kind of know a quick analysis about why you would be someone that they would want to listen to when it comes to protecting their money, because you protect you protect our government's money, so.
So absolutely, kind of what he said. Like I've literally guarded Fort Knox before as a young private way back in the day. So I'm in the Army. I'm active duty. I was an infantryman. I joined the day after 9/11 to serve my country, and I've been doing it for 19 years now. And I'm about to retire next year, actually. And now I'm a finance guy because of certain injuries that happened along the way. But yeah, I grew up as a fighter. I grew up in foster care. I grew up on a $20,000 a year income with a house full of 7 foster kids in it. And, I've learned throughout the years how to be a good steward of my funds, right? Which is why, like, risk mitigation is the one thing you always hear me preach. And education is the most important part of being a trader, right? You don't want to be one of these traders that is like a baby bird who's lying on the mama to feed him a worm and go hunt for that worm and go get that worm and fly the worm all the way back. And then when that mom bird dies, you don't know how to get the worm, right? So real quick, when learning how to trade stocks and all that, like there's a couple of things, you got to go all the way back to the basics, right? And when I look at the brokerages, like I wanted a company that taught me way beyond basics. Like I didn't want to know what an option was. I didn't want to know what a stock was. I didn't want to know when to buy a stock or anything like that. I wanted to know the absolute basics, right? And so that's what I learned. Like before bought anything, like that's what I learned. So I'm gonna give you guys a real class, like live right here, right now. Um, and that way you guys can understand the basics, so you can understand currency and how it's made and what this stock market is that's trading trillions of dollars on what? Like, what is it? All right. So when you're looking for a brokerage or even getting serious about trading, you gotta go all the way back to the basics. So I'm gonna give you a quick class on where does money come from. This is my favorite picture when it comes to trading, right? Build an empire, right? That's the most important part as a retail trader is you got to do it within a team, right? So if you join this program, if you're already part of this program, you can be a witness. Like it's easier to do this stuff with a team than by yourself, especially if you're new, right? We don't send our privates over to Afghanistan and Iraq to fight by themselves with no training, right? So you don't jump into a job and become the CEO of the company without training. So why do people think they can just jump on Robinhood and start trading blindly? It doesn't make sense. All right, so let's go. I'm going to start this off with Winston Churchill said, the farther you look back, the farther forward you can see. All right, without understanding the past, you cannot see into the future. Right, understanding the birth of currency in your pocket can provide a perspective for your plan going forward. And we do this every single day. We do it. We look into the past and we pull from where sustained improvements, and we fix the future, right? When it comes to doing our budget, raising kids, relationships, jobs, war, everything, right? Most people, though, a lot of people live their lives off of money, right? You work your life away at these jobs to get that dollar bill, right? You don't, and you're giving your best parts of your life to these corporations and these jobs, and you don't even know where it's come from and how it's regulated and all that. And that's important to know as a person who trades stocks, right? And when I say people, I don't just mean the working class. I mean the wealthy. I mean bankers. I mean CEOs. Like insurance managers. They don't know where money comes from, right? So, like that's what this class is going to be about. Teach you some inflation, some taxes, and I'm going to do it in 5 minutes. And this is just a taste of what the mentorship program is going to provide you. All right. So step one, where money comes from. The government creates a glorified IOU, which is known as a bond. All right. So the Treasury will create this IOU. All right. Why do we make this IOU? That's known as the national debt, which is known as our bond. Well, it's simple. Politicians make promise, whether they're on the campaign trail, whether they are in office trying to please a stimulants, or they're trying to get reelected. They make these wild promises that we don't have the money to come through with, right? So they have to increase the money supply to come good on these promises, and as the money supply increases, the value of the dollar drops. So we print more money and we print more money, and the value drops even more. And I'll go further into that. Like I said, this series alone is 7 steps, right? And we talk about the history of money and like how many times the market crashes, and all the way back from the beginning where money became a thing. So as the money supply increases, the value of the dollar drops. So we print more money, and that creates deficit spending, right? Deficit spending is when you spend more than you make, right? Most of America does that with credit cards. The government does it with a zero balance account, right? The Treasury borrow currency by issuing a bond, right? It's nothing more than the national debt, like I told you, that is paid by us taxpayers. Not just the principal of that national debt, that bond that they created for that promise that the government made, but the principal with interest and fees that us taxpayers pay, right? So now the value of the dollar drops even more if you think about it. The government doesn't even pay the interest, fees, and bonds. I talked about that. All right, so once the Treasury creates this glorified IOU, aka bond, then they hold a bond auction. The biggest banks, try to get these bonds and win over these bonds because they know they'll profit by the earned interest that we pay for as a tax. taxpayers, right? Now the banks will swap these bonds to create currency, right? They do that through an open market auction, right? Open market auctions are when all the banks sell the bonds to the Federal Reserve. So Treasury makes a bond, banks bid on the bond, banks win the bonds, and then they sell them to the Federal Reserves. And then guess what the Federal Reserve does? It makes magic happen out of thin air, right? From a zero balance account, the Federal Reserve writes a check, right? If we did that, it even says on the Federal Reserve, like if a person writes a check on a zero balance account or doesn't have the money in the account to cover the whole check, it gets rejected, right? But they do it every single time they want to write a bond, right? Then that currency is made, and now the dollar value will decrease, right? So, a quick overview. It is important to know that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury just exchange IOU, aka national debt, to make currency, and they use the banks as a middleman. Like, this country's been running this situation for a while, right? They know all the loopholes behind it. So remember, politicians make promises they can't pay for. Treasury creates the bond. Treasury holds bond auctions and banks buy them. Banks swap those bonds through an open market auction to the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve writes a check from a zero balance account and currency is made. Now politicians have the money to come through with their promises. So that was series 1 of just a class, right? And Kayla talked to me like 2 minutes before this session. I just got off work, still in uniform. I didn't prep that, right? And all I'm trying to show you that, like, here, like, we're just normal people trading, right? We have families, we have pets, we have jobs. It's the holiday season. Our bank accounts grown thin too because our wives like to buy everybody on the earth a Christmas present. And we produce that. Like, nobody thinks about where does money come from, but how can I use that? And feel free to answer this question, but anybody, how can I use what I just taught you to make me a better trader?